Hello and welcome to ConTinual, the convention that never ends. My name is Jean Marie Ward, and tonight on Hot Off the Press, we have a selection of wonderful authors to tell you all about the books you need to buy this month. So we can get to that as quickly as possible, I'm going to let them introduce themselves, starting with Aoife.
Hi, I'm Aoife. I write under the pen name Hughes with my co-author Rachel.
Okay, great. And that is Rachel. Rachel, please give us a little intro.
Hello. So I go underneath the pen name R.A. Cooper, and we have released Wolf and Flame, and book 3 comes out November 26th. And we've also launched Hunter Origins on Royal Road
Okay,
this
great.
last past month.
Great. Well, we'll be asking about all of that. So, BL.
Hello, I'm BL Maxwell. I write mostly contemporary and paranormal romance. I have a few other genres I have written, but I'm trying to narrow it down to those two. So,
Okay, great. Dennis.
I'm Dennis Myers. I write science fiction. My current series is Rise of the Automated Empire. And the next book out in December is the third book, Broken Trust.
Okay, great. John.
Hey, I'm John L. French. I am a retired crime scene investigator, having done 35 plus years on the streets of Baltimore and live to tell about it. I mainly write crime, pulp, and horror. Today I'm going to talk about a fantasy book I have
Okay, okay. And Ellis.
Hi, I'm Ellis. Colton is my pen name, and I'm here to talk about my debut novella as I enter the publishing world of male romance.
Okay, great. Well, that's the first thing I'm going to ask everybody. Tell us a little bit about this book. Tell us about that novella, Ellis.
It's my first book that I've published. I've been writing for a decade and finally gathered up the gumption and to go through the process and figure it all out. So my book is called Prescription for Love. It's a sweet little contemporary romance between a small town Texas sheriff who becomes enamored of a big city doctor who is fleeing the big city because of his broken heart. And they both have a philosophy that they just want to have fun. They're just out to mingle and, no strings attached. But as romance will have its way, that is not the way things stay.
Okay. Dennis, you mentioned yours is a sci-fi novel, the third in a series. Could you tell us a bit about the book and the series?
The series itself covers the transition between one form of government and another, and it gets messy. But each book on its own tells a set of stories of a particular group of individuals. The third book, I used to say that the first book was the spark, the second book was the fuse burning, and then the third book, everything blew up. But then I wrote the fourth book, which turned out to be a lot messier. In the third book, along with everything that's going on politically, militarily, and all of the things that are happening, somebody on Proximus, near Proxima Centauri, has discovered something that proves that human beings aren't the only aliens in the galaxy. So all of a sudden, there's this race. All the different factions start sending people to go make claims, and we get a border dispute on an alien planet, and our Marines have to intervene.
So we've got Space Marines and
Marines, Navy, researchers, and politics run by amateurs.
As they are. I mean, just look at what was happening on the Hill today. Anyway, Rachel, and do you prefer me to call it Aoife or LM?
You can say Aoife is good. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rachel and Aoife, you've got 2 series you want to talk about today that you're writing together? Okay, who wants to go first?
Um, I could start maybe with our first series on Amazon, which is Wolf and Flame. So I'm not sure that I mentioned it's a progression fantasy with cultivation and lit RPG elements in it. And the 2 characters that make up this story is a Raph, a mage, an untrained mage that comes across from Texas to train, where he meets Cara in Ireland, and she's a wolf shifter druid with suppressed powers. There's gods and demons involved, and it's basically just showing basically their relationship revolving over time while they're basically trying to grow stronger to fight out off the powers that be, type of thing. So
Great. I'm familiar with the term lit RPG, and how it is a story that has elements of a game so that you can see what's going on. But I'm not familiar with the term progression fantasy. Could you explain that a little bit?
yeah, so with progression, you're just looking more like it's more involved in the story. So in the context of our story, it's a very important part of the story is that they progress to grow stronger. So in our case, we have a cultivation system. So that's basically they're drawing in energy and they're using that to basically grow stronger. So that's it in its like simplest terms. I could go down a rabbit hole on it, but that's it, I suppose, in its simplest terms.
Okay. And did we give me the title again on this particular book?
Yeah, so it's Wolf and Flame.
Wolf and Flame
is the series, yeah.
The series and the book itself, I take it.
Yeah, so we basically have it's like Wolf and Flame, book 1, book 2, up to book 4. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So okay. And do they each have different titles or just 1, 2, 3, 4?
No, it comes under an umbrella of our shared universe, which is the Uncharted Bloodlines universe.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. And Rachel, what particular book are you promoting here today? I know that you're working together, but now,
Yes.
Which particular book are you talking about?
So I wanted to talk about Hunter Origins, and this is actually a side character that we took from our main series of Wolf and Flame. In that series, he already appears as an immortal cultivator who's kind of helping out Raph and Kara. But in the side companion that's being posted right now on Royal Road, it shows his origin story. So we get to know a little bit more about the beginning of that cultivation system, see him progress and power up, and eventually kind of ascend into immortality.
Okay, cool. And John, you're also working in fantasy. So, tell us about the new book and title and everything.
People who know my writings probably know me more for crime fiction and some horror, a lot of hard-boiled stuff. Long time ago, I basically wrote a fairy tale. And I liked the characters so much that I wrote a mystery story, a locked room fantasy story with no murder, and somehow it got published in Alfred Hitchcock. Still don't know how that happened. So I stuck with this character whenever I needed, whenever I had a fantasy setting and I needed a character, I stuck with this character, Connor of Scotcha. It is set in a fantasy Europe where Ireland is known as Scotcha, England is known as Albion, France is known as Francia, that sort of thing. And plus there's a few mythical kingdoms in there. Well, and I had collected enough of them and there was some progression to them, but not enough for a book. So I set about writing the stories that took place like within the other stories. One of the stories I'd already written is now called The Good, the Bard, and the Ugly, And it was written in tribute to the late great C.J. Henderson for the book, The Society for the Preservation of C.J. Henderson.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And I'm very pleased to say that he did read my story and liked it, with a few minor corrections, but it wouldn't be different. And he at least got to read that story. In my book, the In the Ruins of Caroline, I actually give C.J. Seejay, son of Hender, his own story. And so this is a story about a knight. Starts out as a sword for hire. And in a series of stories that have a progression to them, he eventually sets out on the road to becoming a hero. And by the end, he does basically become a hero. So, and it has wizards who won't stay dead, and bears who understand human speech, and a phoenix dragon hybrid, and an explanation of why dragons really like treasure. Along the way, he's assisted by a woman who was once a Grail maiden and who just has hung around on this earth for an inordinate number of years.
Okay, cool. Very cool. All right, BL, let's hear about your latest release. And is it part of a series?
It's actually, this is my latest, and it's just it's called A Lot of Snow for Christmas.
Okay.
And my inspiration was last year we had so much snow in the Sierra. It was like dangerous snow, where if the snowbanks were crazy, it was like you were driving through a tunnel almost when you were going up there. So this story is about two guys that are total opposites. I love opposites attract. I love that. And the one guy is very much into his business, and he's just sick of Christmas and decides he's going to rent a cabin in Tahoe and just go ski for the week and forget basically there's a holiday. The other guy is little sunshiny Ronnie, who he makes pet clothes for his business. He's just a sweet little guy, and he's got a cute little dog, and he has decided he has a huge family, and he doesn't want to spend the holiday with them because they drive him crazy, and he just wants to get away and have a white Christmas with his dog. And so as he's driving to Tahoe, they close the road. So he pulls off on another road to try to turn around. He doesn't really know what to do, but a car forces him off the road and into a snowbank, and the top of it comes down on top of his car. But lucky for him, Jack sees this happen from the cabin he's in. So he goes and helps him. And it's a short book, but a lot happens in that time. They lose power. They, part of the roof, a tree hits the roof and caves part of the cabin in. So
Forced proximity, yes.
Yes. So it's just kind of fun. And I actually, how some books, you might write a long book and you never want to use those characters ever again. You're just sick of them. These characters I really like. So I'm going to expand that and do kind of a trilogy about them. That's not just at the cabin in a week. So that'll be probably early next year. I'll start working on that.
Okay, cool. You actually jump-started my next My next question for everybody was, what was the inspiration of the book, the snow, but whether other inspirations involved, other things that sparked the specific plot, or did you just want to write a forced proximity male romance?
Oh, I wanted to do a Christmas book, but not a tradition, because this happens around Christmas, but they don't ever celebrate Christmas because all these other things are happening around them. So that was sort of my inspiration too, because I kind of, for myself with Christmas, I kind of get tired of, and then they went and bought a tree, and then they decorated the tree, and then, it just, I have a few books with that, but I didn't want to write that in this one, but I still wanted it to be somewhat of a holiday book. So that was my inspiration.
Yeah, and there are more holidays than Christmas going on at that point.
That's right.
You know,
That's
and we
right.
tend to forget that. But everybody's celebrating, and then you're stuck in a cabin with a snowstorm in the tree, and so that could be a problem. Okay, let's talk about what inspired you, Ellis, to say I'm going to write for publication, a fiction for publication now. What was the spark for you?
So I've written fan fiction for like 10, 11, 12 years. I'm like losing count. And had been told numerous times, well, you should think about publishing a book. You should think about, original fiction, including my husband. So a couple of years ago, as we were spending a lot of time at home and not going out to places, I was like, well, maybe I should just try it. Part of me thought, imposter syndrome, what are we thinking about? Can I really do this? And then I really thought, can I not do it? And then 10 years from now, think, what if I had done that? Mm-hmm. And I didn't want that to happen. I did not want to look back and think, really wish I had tried that. So I was very fortunate to make friends with the wonderful writer, Gail Z. Martin. And she really helped mentor me and, encouraged me and said, you can do this. And so I've spent the last year writing and rewriting this story, and then, bit by bit, learning the process of self-publishing. Every day was a new adventure. And, I finally, it was the end of September, and I looked at my keyboard, and all I had to do was finally push that little button that said upload. And I thought, am I really going to do this? And I said, yep, I am. And I pushed it. And now I have a book.
It's a book.
And I'm getting very nice. Thank you. I'm really getting some lovely, feedback and everything on it. Do we go in? Do we talk about what we're going to do, or is that later on?
What do you mean by?
Well, so I'm working on the next one.
Oh, okay. Well, we can later. Okay. So yeah,
it's not going to be a one and done. This story will be a standalone story for now, but I am working on my second book. The third book is already like residing in the back of my brain, waiting its turn. And then I was like, oh yeah, and here's the series I want to do after that. So, once you get the gears going, man.
Okay.
They never stop.
Yeah. I'm lying in bed. I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, oh, and then.
Yep, indeed. Okay, John, you also jumped the gun a little bit about, some of the inspirations for the current novel. But what made you decide to put it all together now?
Well, I've been looking. I was looking at some of my old stories that have appeared only in anthologies, and I'm thinking how nice it would be if I could put all these books, all these stories together. I've done that with some of my other characters, Bianca Jones stories, the Matthew Grace stories. So I figured, how many Connor stories do I have, and how many do I need for make it book length? And fortunately for me, I'd already written an outline of sorts in the first story, in which Connor is already a hero, and this couple whose child has been stolen comes to him to help recover the child. And in discussing Connor, I mentioned, well, he was a hero. He had slain a dragon and recovered its treasures. He had won a princess only to have his best friend steal her away. He had done this and he had done that. And I realized those are the stories I had to write. So I knew what the stories were going to be. I just put a different spin on them.
Mm-hmm.
The dragon turned out to be a dragon phoenix hybrid. The year he spends a year in fairy, he spends a few days in fairy, which turns out to be a year in real life, and the consequences of that. And so I had my outline. I already had some stories, so I went from there and put them together in what I think is a cohesive narrative.
Okay, well, it probably is. I mean, you've been at
Yeah.
this for a while.
Plus, I couldn't let CJ. I couldn't just write one CJ story. I had to write. I had to give CJ his own story. Connor is in the beginning of it just to keep everything together, but he goes off and finds himself in what amounts to an old fairy tale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fairy tales are an endless source of inspiration to me, as well as the mythology. Okay, Rachel. Okay, what was the inspiration behind the creation of this very complex universe that you and Aoife are writing in? Could you tell us a little bit about that? What got you into progression fantasy? What got you into, the whole thing?
Yeah. So I'll say we first started writing together actually because we happened across each other in a writing room, and we were both interested in myths and legends. So she pulled in some legends from Ireland, the werewolves of Oshery, and then I pulled in an urban legend from where I live, the Goat Man. And so that's kind of how this co-authorship really sprung off the board. And then Aoife is actually the one who really got me into progression fantasy and the lit RPG. I'd listened to some before in the past, but she kept recommending all these other books, and it's something that I've grown to love. Actually, it was kind of a natural progression for me to really enjoy. And so we kind of just, with all of that, being able to read everything and put it all together, we'd come up with our cultivation system that was actually based off of a Celtic, I don't know what it was exactly, but it was something we found on one of the Celtic websites when we were researching. And so we stemmed everything in our world building system off of that. So there's different paths that the characters kind of go down whenever they're cultivating and progressing through their powers. Another thing that came across in the reading and many of the lit RPGs, and especially with the Chat GPT and AI coming up, there's a lot of snarky AIs that come in through those books and novels, and so we also drew on that inspiration by adding our own snarky AIs into our own fiction.
Are you using AI as artificial intelligence?
No, just in our novel we have characters that are AIs.
What is an AI character? Remember,
yes.
You're dealing with folks for whom the language is not necessarily automatic. So, we want to bring folks in who've never read lit RPG, never read progression fantasy. So just take me and my stupidity as the stand-in. So what AI? I'm getting all lost here. It means one thing to me.
I think I can kind of go a little old school. If you were to think of, Space Odyssey, HAL would be your kind of OG kind of AI. So it's basically just like a talking computer, if you want to say, for that is an interface between you, we'll say the human, and whether it's a virtual world, which some lit RPGs would be in, or kind of like an MMO, kind of like a multiplayer game world. But you will also find them in for example, one series that I've read is called Cradle. And so even though it's kind of in a fantasy setting, there is characters that have that kind of AI element. Like there's a character Dross that's basically that. And it really enriches the relationships between characters. And so, yeah, as Rachel said, we drew a lot of inspiration from what we're reading, from games, music, and films, inspirations drawn from also, from cartoons going back to the 80s, 90s, like where I grew up as well. So I just, yeah, and again, also our cultural backgrounds in mythology as well. Yeah,
Okay,
that we
so
liked.
I'm kind of, my mind's blowing here. Okay, so I apologize. Right. From the way you were describing Wolf and Flame, I got this feeling of a high fantasy world, but I'm hearing when you introduced AI and it is a computerized stand-in, I'm getting the feeling that it's taking place in a contemporary style world where you've got computers and phones and modern stuff. Or
yeah, so there's a mix of both. So basically we have like a divine, so basically a divine realm as well. So the gods and demons actually have their own AIs, like to basically manage their worlds, basically. So we have one for the divine realm and one for the underworld, and there's even more. I won't even go into it more than that. But yes, the main characters in the story are living in a kind of an urban fantasy setting, in contemporary, contemporary Ireland and contemporary Texas. Yeah, so yeah.
Okay, got it. And is the particular werewolf myth you were using, I recall something about an Irish werewolf myth where in a family, one individual is designated as the wolf for 7 years.
Yeah.
And they basically go and live as a wolf for 7 years and then come back. And then the next generation, someone else is selected. Is that the one we were talking about?
Yeah. So it's basically, it comes out of like County Laois is where it originated. Well, there are different variations of it, but the one that I was looking from and drawing loosely from is just basically that there are these benevolent, kind of wolf, if you want to say werewolves. Now, to fit the genre better, we just call them wolf shifters. And we basically went from the kind of where they don't necessarily have control in the beginning of their shifter powers. So we basically set up the family. And what if, one brother causes the curse on the entire family? What would the dynamics be like in the family? Where would the blame be cast? And what would happen if they lived to present day, and how much more powerful would they be once they learned how to control their powers? And basically then their kind of conflict with the druids that lived at the same time, and so that's where that came up. But it was basically a part of the inspiration for the story, and then I just let my imagination go a little bit wild, as it tends to do.
That's what we're all here for, is the imagination. And, we're here to make it go wild, whether it's in a contemporary, quote, realistic setting, because we're all inventing our worlds. Let's face it. We just are. And that goes for somebody like Ellis or BL as much as, for you, because we are in control. We are in control. Sort of, kind of, when the words let us. Anyway, Dennis, what was the inspiration behind your series and the specific inspiration behind your current book?
Well, ever since I was young, when I was 17, I knew I wanted to be an author. I've been collecting stories and story ideas and fragments and notes forever. And a few years ago, two things happened. One, I had a cousin who's also an author who challenged me to put all of my story ideas onto one timeline. Most of them fit, and I was able to see patterns and see things that were going on and get an overall view. And the next thing that happened is I got laid off. from a job that I'd had for almost a decade. And the severance package was based on my age. And because I'm not a spring chicken, that severance package meant that I didn't have to go back to work for 4 months. And my lovely wife didn't bat an eye when I told her that I wanted to sit down for 3 months and finish one of my projects. So, being a software developer, I created a real quick program and put in all the projects that I thought I could finish into a random number thingy and had it spit out one story. And it spit out a short story. The short story was just about this character who went flying and was coming home, and I looked at it on the spreadsheet and realized that this was happening right at this change between the corporate federation and the automated empire. And I realized, oh, I have an origin story to write. And so next thing I know, I've got a whole book of ideas, and that book grew into 3 books. And then the first book got split by my first editor. So now I've got a 4-book series. The broken trust is the point in the story where the good guys are having the worst time. The organization they've built is falling apart for various good reasons. One character who suffers a trauma in the first book has not dealt with that trauma, and in this book she has to, and the people around her are crucial to that. Again, broken trust is a name with many meanings, so and I play with that. This one had a couple of scenes that were really hard to write for me. They were very emotional, and I'm really proud of this one. So I can't wait for people to read it.
Okay, cool. And, to get back to Ellis's question, let's talk a little bit about what's next down the chute. I mean, you've got number 4 coming and things really blow up, right?
Yeah, number 4 is basically the war story. This is where everything, the corporate federation has basically blown up, and now everybody's fighting over the pieces, and this is how everything works out. The major battles, there's some significant losses, and a fairly decent end point for the characters that survive.
The big climax of the
Yes.
series. Okay.
Yeah, and one thing I like to point out is the term automated empire is what historians looking back will say this was the beginning of.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Okay, Ellis, tell us about what you're working on next. I mean, you raised the question, so now you're on the hot seat.
It was something I promised myself that if I did it, I was going to, I was going to commit to it. So as soon as finally book 1 here was up and running, I sat down and started on the next one, which will also be a contemporary romance, but it will take place, a lot of it will take place in a dojo. I'm a black belt, and I've spent several years working in a dojo, including teaching karate, and I absolutely love it. And I really wanted to explore that world and like set something up within that world. I'm not a big traditional sports person. There's a lot of hockey romances out there and all that. And I've enjoyed reading some, but none of them impel me to write because that's just not my thing. But karate is definitely my thing. So my next one will be a karate romance. And then after that, the one that's living in the back of my brain now will be my first paranormal, because I definitely want to do paranormal. And beyond that is the historical one. I just want to play in everything. I don't want to stick to one thing, because everything can be really fun, and everything, I want to explore everything. So there'll be some, a little bit of a nice wide range and that will be fun for me to write and hopefully fun for people to read.
Okay, great. So, Aoife and Rachel, I don't know whether this is going to be a onesie or a twosie, so I'm going to let you guys decide it out. But could you tell us what is next for you? What is your next writing project or projects? So,
Yeah,
take it
can
away,
I just
lady.
say, Carol, I love your idea. I actually met my husband in a kung fu club, so I think that's fantastic. Um, so yeah, we've got book 4 coming up next. So each book takes place in a different location. So this one goes to New Orleans, where they'll face off against the big bad that's been basically it's been brewing up over the 4-book series, and that'll be up on pre-order. And I'll let Rachel talk about what's happening with Hunter Origins as well.
Yes.
So
So in Hunter Origins, it's actually planned to be a long series, as long as possible. But with Hunter, he has to find 12 other initiates to ascend a tower to immortality with him. And so he has to be able to build this faction and lead them so that they come together in unison and cooperate. And so that can be up to 13 books, depending. So,
Oh, wow. You got your work cut out for you, don't you?
yes.
So yeah, whoa. I start to get the willies if something goes on to 3, you know. But that's just me. Anyway, John, what's next for you after this book?
Okay, I have 2 books submitted to 2 different publishers. One is called When the Devil Drives. It is a collection of, well, my stories of the weird. They're not all horror stories, but they are all definitely weird stories. One of which has a title of Pajama Skulls, which will give you an idea of I think. The other one is set in a somewhat future city called Harbor City, in which there are capes and masks and henchmen and a monastery to either Saint Bridget or Bridget the Celtic Goddess, or possibly both. And all the adventures that take place in Harbor City, all coming together in one grand finale. The other one, that is going to be called The Last Ride of Cadillac Jack. And right now, what I'm working on is, some time ago, I had a book published called The Magic of Simon Toombs. Simon Toombs is the 60s and 70s gentleman adventurer, like the Falcon, the Saint, the Tough, the Baron. Only he can do magic.
Yeah.
And it's a collection of linked stories, which culminate again in the big finale. There's one story that I particularly like. It's set at a convention called Tyrnicon, in which it's a fairy convention in which the fairies actually, they like the idea of celebrating.
Mhm.
And but I'm writing. I've had, I wasn't planning to write a follow-up yet, but at recent conventions, I've had a few people going, well, when are you going to write another Simon Toombs? And when people start asking an author when you're going to write the next one, then there's only one thing to do, and that's write the next one. And I'm working on that right now.
Okay, great. BL, so what are you writing as the next one?
I actually just got edits back for I have a low angst anthology that I'm in February.
Mhm.
And it's from my Christmas book last year, actually.
Oh,
So I
cool.
just kind of continued it into, it'll still be the same year, but then it'll go into February. It's 2 guys that are one bakes cookies, and they both end up helping each other with this cookie business. Then after, I just started on I have a small town series that it's kind of fun for me because it's based on my hometown, and I actually used the name of what the town was previously called. So I feel like I'm in on this big secret and no one knows but me, but people from my hometown know, so I guess it's not a secret. But it's so I'm doing a Christmas story for two of the characters in that I've pretty kind of like you, John. I've had readers ask, well, when are these two getting married? Because I've kind of married off everyone else, so they'll get their wedding, but it's just going to be a short. And then after that, I'm in I haven't started it yet, but it's a reimagined fairy tale, like dark fairy tale romance. But I think it's so funny. It has to include a drag queen somewhere.
Okay.
So it's kind of an odd combination, but it's, I like a challenge. So we'll see.
Yeah, it works for me. Odd challenges are us. Let's face it, we're writers.
That's
Anyway, okay, we're unfortunately coming up sort of to the end of our time together tonight. So I'm going to ask you, starting with BL, again, give us the name of the book, the new book, where folks can find it, and where they can find you on the web.
Oh, sorry. So my latest release is A Lot of Snow for Christmas, and you can find it on Amazon. The paperback is wide, but the ebook is only on Amazon. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram is what I'm mostly on. I also, my website, I'm kind of working on and adding more to it so I can do direct sales, that kind of thing. And it's blmaxwellwriter.com.
Okay, and is that your handle on the various social media?
Yes, BL Maxwell.
Okay, BL Maxwell, not BL Maxwell Writer. Okay.
No, just BL Maxwell.
Okay, great. John, you don't have a website, as I recall.
No, I don't.
Anyway, but okay, tell us again the name of the book, where folks can find it, and where they can find you on the web.
The book is In the Ruins of Caroline, and you can find me on Facebook under John French. You can find me on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, but and under the name John L. French. If you search for me on either one of them, please, include the title of one of my books if you remember, because otherwise you will get books about France. You will get books in the French language. You will get everything but John L. French. And make sure you include the L, because there's a John French who writes Warhammer books.
Okay, so give us the name of the book again.
Okay, it is In the Ruins of Caroline.
Okay. Ellis, name of the book again, where folks can find it, and where they can find you on the web.
The book is Prescription for Love. It's available as ebook and paperback on Amazon. And I am most active at this point on Facebook, but I do have Instagram and Twitter as well. And those links can all be found either on my Facebook page, which is just, Ellis Colton, you'll see me, or all my social media links are also on card.co.
Okay, great. Okay. Aoife, again, name of the book, where folks can find it, and where they can find you on the web.
Yeah, so you can find our latest books in the Wolf and Flame series on Amazon. You can find me under LM Hughes or Aoife Y. We also have excuse me. You can also find us on www.unchartedbloodlines.com. And I think Rachel will take over with where else we are online.
I did want to mention too, we have our book one is out on audio, and we have a Kickstarter coming up that's going to launch in a couple of days, and it will be for the audio for book 2 here. And then Hunter Origins is on Royal Road, and you can also find it on Patreon. Again, Uncharted Bloodlines is the profile.
Okay, so if folks are going to go to Kickstarter, what would they look under? LM Hughes and Rachel Cooper? Would they look under a series name? Would they look under a book title?
You can look under Wolf and Flame Pub. That's our profile.
Wolf and Flame Pub, not publishing?
It was too many characters.
Yeah, well, we're all that. So where can folks find you? I mean, everything's wide, I presume, at Amazon and other online sellers.
Mhm.
Where can folks find you, specifically Rachel Cooper, on the web?
So you can find me at the unchartedbloodlines.com, our shared website, and also R.A. Cooper on Facebook. That's probably the best spot.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, Dennis, name of the new book, where folks can find it, and where they can find you on the web.
The latest book is Broken Trust, and it will be out December 22nd. The first two books are already out there on Amazon. You can find me at automatedempire.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Mastodon. There are links to those sites on my website.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all for joining us here tonight, and I hope all these books sell super, super well, because they all sound very interesting and, opening my eyes to some new things. So thank you again, and thank you out there for joining us here at ConTinual.